Here's March, 7 movies, yay!
There is no Easter Bunny, there is no Tooth Fairy, and there is no
Megamind.
Well, in February, I had a clear winner for the absolute worst movie I watched of the month. Madam Web was so atrocious that it laughs in the face of filmmakers. I truly call it one of the worst movies I've ever watched.
And then they would sue!
You guys know how much I love DreamWorks, how much these movies have meant for me over the years. You guys know it's hard for the Boss Baby movies to be beaten in any sense.
Today's the day!
Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate, and no, I won't be calling this movie Megamind 2 because that's insulting, is right up there with Madam Web as truly one of the worst movies I've ever watched. Even Bezos, the worst of 2023 for me, isn't one of the worst movies I've ever watched. For as bad as The Bubble, the worst of 2022 in my opinion, truly was, it wasn't one of the worst movies I've ever watched. The fact that 2024 had not one but 2 movies that I can call that, yeesh. It's actually crazy how bad this movie is. For starters, it completely dumps on any charisma or humor the first film had. And it doesn't go anywhere. The fact it's direct to streaming should tell you everything you need to know. And I know that animation style. That's the animation style from the Boss Baby Netflix series and the Bad Guys Holiday Special. If I'm comparing your movie to the fucking Bad Guys Holiday Special, you did something wrong. The fact that they had the audacity to say,
Megamind is back.
You're welcome. As if this was the second coming of Megamind's humongous gabungus forehead. Nah, I don't buy it. This sucks. Moving on. Come on, really? This couldn't have been good. I was recommended this one by a certain coworker of mine, and I do appreciate the recommendation, shout out to the homie, but I couldn't get into this one. Anyone who's been around since my high school days on this channel would probably tell you I'm a huge Adam Sandler fan. Hell, I have a ranking of all of Adam Sandler's movies from that point. Hustle was close to the top for my 2022 ranking, and I have a whole video discussing my thoughts on Leo. This brings me to this movie. While I wanted to enjoy this movie, it took itself way too seriously for what the film was. And to me, it just doesn't work. At least not to the extent of what the film was trying to do. I will say Sandler is good in this, but the pacing is pretty bad, it drags at times, and I just can't remember anything about these characters, other than one of them is played by grown-ups too. I don't think it's awful, but it's not anywhere near the best we've seen from what I will say is a side of Sandler I like that we're seeing. See, in the early 2000s, Sandler started to take more serious roles with Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love, and later be in Reign Over Me with Don Cheadle. In 2019, he showed more of that serious nature with Uncut Gems, one of my favorite movies to feature him. And in years after that, he showed more and more he can be taken more seriously given the role. Do not talk about fucking Hubie Halloween. It's not easy to straight up say, but I actually kind of prefer when he does serious movies over his comedy movies because he is a good actor. But here, I don't know, like I said, not awful, just not great either.
Roadhouse.
Really, Hollywood? A Roadhouse remake? The 1989 Patrick Swayze movie that, in itself, is more of a cult classic than an actual classic? We're really scraping that barrel, huh? Okay, well, one thing's for certain, this is actually one of those few remakes I actually liked more. Again, I don't like either movie and I didn't like the original. Blame it on me being Gen Z, I don't care, we got across the Spider-Verse and you didn't. Suck it, 80s babies. I don't know, this is in the same boat of One Love from last month. I just don't have too many notes. It doesn't need to exist, but it's fine enough, I guess.
早上好，中国！现在我要冰淇淋，我喜欢冰淇淋。
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to like that at all. Ricky Stanicky was possibly one of the funniest first halves of a movie I've ever seen. The last half goes down exponentially and I couldn't put this movie in the top 3 for that. But yeah, that first half is pretty good, and the characters, even John Cena, who's dressed as Britney Spears of all people, was really funny. These movies really need to work on their timing, because I just watched the Oscars and then I watched this movie and that was a mistake. The humor is really good. This is Dumb and Dumber and really all those classic 90s comedies. He also did Green Book because everyone sells out at some points, just like I'm about to. This video is sponsored by your mom.
Who you gonna call? Someone else.
I have such a weird history with these Ghostbusters movies. I absolutely adore the first movie, and while I agree with most of the problems people have with Ghostbusters 2, it's kind of growing on me. It's alright, nothing really that new, but it serves well. And then there was Afterlife. I actually didn't mind Afterlife. It was probably the closest to the original in spirit. Again, that's not exactly a high bar, but back to business. I think the best sequel, in my opinion, Don't Hate Me Yet. Frozen Empire isn't even close to the original, but with all the sequels, I think it's the best of them. That's just my opinion. I do wish they stuck to what the trailer was showing, being darker and more intense, considering this is a franchise about fucking ghosts. I always heard stories of Dan Aykroyd claiming he had an idea for the third Ghostbusters movie that was meant to be darker and more sinister than the lighthearted original films. The working title was literally something like Ghostbusters Go to Hell. That would have been amazing. But I get it, stick to what the franchise ultimately is, fun and lighthearted. And it's my personal favorite of the sequels, so there's that.
Buster makes me feel good. It makes me feel good.
Paul Rudd being added to these movies was a fucking mistake.
The Sword of Heroes! Said to be so sharp you can cut yourself just by looking at it.
Hey, back-to-back hot takes. I'm on fire today. Yep, I actually unironically enjoyed Kung Fu Panda 4. But before someone says anything like, oh, of course he did because he sucks or something, get laid. Anyway, I do agree it's the worst of the films by a long shot. There's not even a competition there. The original 3 are all but superior. But for the film we got, I was pretty invested. I still agree it doesn't need to exist, but think of it like Toy Story 4. While it definitely doesn't need to exist, it doesn't compare to the movies prior to it, it's still enjoyable to an extent. I do not care how many people get mad at me, I didn't mind Zen. I saw so many people complain that it was just another Aquafina character, just another furry bait character. I don't care. She's cute. She's really, really cute. No furry jokes though, I had enough of those in the last video. While The Furious 5 was definitely missed, I can't complain too much because in the end, I did enjoy this movie, and that's all there is to it.
Skadoosh.
I am so sick of the biggest complaint for this movie being that it catered to kids more than the generation who grew up with these movies. On one hand, I get it. I was 6 when the first film came out, and now I'm 21 when this one came out. Yeah, sure, I can get mad at Mr. Beast being in this movie.
But thick cheeses.
They're not going to cater to us. We are in our 20s. DreamWorks, as much as we want to say they aren't, they're supposed to make family movies. Not movies that cater to just us. It has to be family because that is what DreamWorks is. What, you want Poe to swear?
Fucking dick!
You want some analog horror shit? That exists! Kung Fu Panda 4 might not be perfect, but to me, it serves its purpose well and I enjoyed it.
The monkey chain! The monkey's fist! The monkey!
Surprise, surprise! Anyone who knows me knows I definitely don't like the MonsterVerse movies prior to this one. I didn't like Godzilla 2014, I somewhat enjoyed Skull Island, absolutely hated King of the Monsters, and I somewhat enjoyed Godzilla vs. Kong. It doesn't help that Godzilla -1 came out just a few months before this one, so my standards were already set. I really enjoyed it. Yep, Godzilla X Kong. That is a terrible fucking name! Imagine a kid Googling that. Oh boy, I can't wait to watch Godzilla X Kong, I'm gonna Google it. Was really dumb, enjoyable fun. It's not quite Dune 2, I would say that's going to be at the top for a bit until something else comes along. But for me, I really surprisingly enjoyed this movie. Nothing to the extent of Godzilla -1, considering how those effects looked on the shoestring budget it had, and these effects... That's Baby Kong, great. But I gotta hand it to Legendary. These movies have had some ups and downs, but Godzilla X Kong, I really gotta start calling it the new Empire, was definitely a major up. Well guys, until next time, oh shit, is that the fucking Jerry Seinfeld Pop-Tart movie? Let's get this right!